After the break, the Mayor is told he must improve maternity care in the capital as a new report finds standards are a postcode lottery. Tonight, the trauma of being pregnant during the pandemic. A review finds care varied across the city, with some women suffering while at their most vulnerable.
After my C-section, I was alone for about 8 hours after my birth, not able to walk, in the middle of the night, not able to drink anything.
Also ahead, 2 serving Met officers are sacked for sharing offensive messages on WhatsApp, including racist remarks about Katie Price's son Harvey. Plus,
this super sewer is very wide, more than 7 metres in width.
Inside the super sewer that could help stop waste spilling into the Thames.
Is your mum breathing?
No.
Not breathing at all?
No.
The little girl who stepped up when her mum needed her most. And the pensioners fighting fit with the Green Goddess. Good evening. Women losing their babies alone, midwives exhausted and partners banned from maternity wards. That was the reality for some Londoners during the pandemic, according to a new report, which described maternal health services in the capital as a postcode lottery. Hospital trusts interpreted rules differently and some struggled with their staffing levels. Today, Sadiq Khan agreed that lessons need to be learned, but it is too late for families who say they've been left traumatised by their birthing experiences. Carolyn Sim has this.
While the world was dealing with the pandemic, some women were giving birth alone. Some were losing babies alone. And a new report has found the care they received across London was like a postcode lottery.
Yeah.
Mia Roberts Mukasa had her son Oscar by emergency C-section in October 2021. At that time, COVID restrictions in communities had been relaxed. But in hospital, after her tiny son was rushed away to be incubated, Mia was left alone for 8 hours.
It was scary, it was mixed emotions, and it was lonely. The fact that I had been promised that I would have been able to have my mum with me and then I wasn't, that was an additional burden.
You were almost treated in a kind of inhumane way.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, I feel like the trusts were trying to be seen to be being tough on COVID, implement tough rules, but weren't actually thinking of the impact that it was having on families.
The London Assembly Health Committee asked those who used maternity services during COVID about their experiences and found there were disparities in the levels of care provided between different NHS trusts. Staffing levels were inadequate in many units. The pandemic had a negative impact on the mental health of women and their partners, and staff from minority ethnic groups were more likely to face discrimination. The report's authors say lessons need to be learned from the pandemic about how to improve maternity care in London, and they want the Mayor to help.
The Mayor can, at the very least, use his convening powers. He has the London Health Board and get NHS services and maternity services across London together to make sure that they are meeting the standards that have been set by NHS guidelines.
How are you?
The problem for the NHS, the Mayor told us today, is funding.
I know from conversations I've had in the past with them is they're working incredibly hard with limited resources. Their staff are stretched, and that's why I'm sure there'll be allies in lobbying the government for more resources. The reality is it's very difficult to provide the level of service that our city deserves with the level of cuts we've had over the last 13 years.
That one, OK, we can get that one down.
The NHS in London says improving maternity services is a priority and that work is underway to tackle inequalities in care. But many people like Mia were so traumatised by their experience, their trust in the service has been broken. Carolyn Sim, ITV News.
Well, the government says its maternity disparities task force is in place to explore women's health before and during pregnancy, and £39 billion is being invested through the Health and Social Care Levy. But let's talk about this a little bit more. I'm joined now by Sakina Ballard from Make Birth Better. Welcome to you.
Right.
I think we saw there that giving birth during the pandemic, being pregnant during the pandemic, was just incredibly lonely and scary.
Yes, and that's the story we've heard from many women and birthing people, that the challenges they were facing, partners not being allowed in, sometimes their choices being limited in terms of their birth choices, and also their antenatal care and their postnatal care in terms of visits, being able to see people, access the support they needed was limited, and all of those things have affected them, as well as the support that would have been around in the community too.
It feels a bit like humans at the centre of this, women at the centre of this, being secondary to rules and regulations and being seen to do the right thing. Is that fair?
I think that's probably how it's felt a lot of the time, and also to give voice to a lot of the staff who are working under very difficult conditions, and at a time when there wasn't a lot of evidence about how best to implement some of these guidelines. I think it's just been a very challenging time, but I think what we're hearing now and seeing now is that sometimes, particularly in certain areas, a lot of the restrictions haven't gone back to pre-pandemic sort of levels, and people are still needing to find a way forward in terms of the maternity care, and staff and services are trying to kind of reform after a really challenging few years.
And talking about staff, it's interesting, the report pulled out that people from ethnic minority backgrounds are more likely to be disciplined and less likely to get promoted. Awful for them, and I'm guessing that also has a knock-on effect, doesn't it, for care?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a topic that we've been talking about for quite a few years, particularly in maternity. And I know, you know, I work in an NHS trust, and I also work, of course, at Make Birth Better, and I know there's a lot of work being done to really try and tackle the inequality and the injustice within trusts. I know some trusts are really trying to take steps forward in kind of anti-racism work, really looking to support recruitment and also the development of their global majority staff. And I know at Make Birth Better, we're working with training packages that we offer to NHS trusts, but also with as an organisation to really start to tackle things that are, yes, organisational and systemic, but also rooted in individuals and the way that we have been sort of socially raised to interact with ideas around race too.
People have to be at the centre of it, don't they?
Absolutely.
Sakina, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
2 serving Metropolitan Police officers have been sacked after sharing offensive messages in a WhatsApp group. 6 police officers were also barred from serving again after being found guilty of sending racist, homophobic and transphobic messages. The Met has apologised to Katie Price and her son Harvey, who was the butt of some of the officers' jokes. Helen Keenan reports.
2 police officers sacked from the Met for swapping racist jokes in a WhatsApp group.
The messages were horrendous, they have no place in policing, and they have been dealt with and dismissed.
6 others were also involved. They had already resigned. Today, the hearing into their behaviour found they too would have been dismissed if they had still been serving, and all of the officers told they will never be allowed to serve in a police force in this country again.
We will do everything we possibly can to rebuild that, to demonstrate that we're very serious about rooting out those people that shouldn't be here, so that everybody can have complete trust that officers and staff in the Met will give them the best service that they expect.
Along with sexist comments about a female colleague and joking about Nazi concentration camps, they also targeted Katie Price's son Harvey in a series of racist images and comments.
Does it make Harvey happy that the police officers have got told off today?
No.
For being horrible to Harvey?
Yeah.
The Met have issued an apology to her, but speaking to ITV yesterday, she called for sanctions to be strengthened so officers posting this kind of content could be imprisoned.
Until there's an example in place to know that some kind of punishment can happen, it's just going to keep carrying on. And I think now something needs to be shown that if something does happen, you can actually be punished for it.
It's less than a month since the Casey report was released, a damning examination into the Met. The result of today's hearing continues to raise questions around police culture.
When you've got officers that sit in WhatsApp groups in a comfortable position where they're with their mates and they think it's okay to have conversations and say whatever it is that they want to do because nobody else will know about it. The problem is those behaviours are exactly the same behaviours that they will then go and display out to members of the public to marginalise. And what has happened is allowed an organisation to fester, and basically it has actually embedded into the culture as if it's the norm.
The result of today's hearing highlights the mountain the Commissioner will have to climb to rebuild public trust. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
A 17-year-old is fighting for his life in hospital after being shot in the head in Tottenham in the early hours of yesterday morning. It comes after a number of teenage stabbings this month, including the killing of Chima Asuji outside a school in Chingford last week. A 16-year-old boy has been charged with murder. A British man has pleaded guilty to travelling to Syria to join the so-called Islamic State 9 years ago. Shabazz Suleiman from High Wycombe was 19 when he disappeared during a family holiday to Turkey. Suleiman was arrested at Heathrow in 2021. 14 people, including 2 children, have been rescued from a fire in a 4-storey building in Lewisham. It broke out in a ground floor flat in the early hours of this morning on Polcroft Lane. 60 firefighters responded to bring the fire under control. Just as a 4-day junior doctor strike comes to an end, the Royal College of Nurses has announced they will walk out again later this month. Antoine Allen is outside University College Hospital for us now. Antoine, it felt like a deal was quite close, didn't it?
Yes, it feels like this was a day where some deals were accepted, but others were rejected. Now, the original government offer to the nurses in the different unions was a 5% pay increase next year and £2,500 as a one-off payment. Now, 56% of the Royal College of Nurses members voted against the government's latest pay offer, which means members of Trust, just like the one behind me and the ones that are appearing on your screen right now, will once again begin a strike, which will include a 40-hour strike from 8 p.m. on the 30th of April to 8 p.m. on the 2nd of May. This means this time, for the first time, that R&C members that are also a part of the emergency departments, the intensive care units, the cancer care and other services that previously were exempt from the strikes in December will also be striking. Remember, the December strike itself was the first time in the Royal College of Nursing's history. This is what they had to say today.
This offer was not enough for our members, and it is now down to the government to listen to the voice of nursing and put a better offer on the table. They need to restore the nurses' pay and they need to make a better offer. But the one thing that they must not do is to take the current offer off the table. They need to leave that on the table and add to it.
The government has had some success, so NHS workers who are part of the Unison Union did accept their deal in a vote of over 70%.
Antoine, thank you very much. Next tonight, a look inside the £4 billion super sewer that will help protect the Thames from pollution. It is a 15-mile-long tunnel designed to ease pressure on the capital's creaking waste system. More than 150 years old, it struggles with the number of people now living here, regularly sending excess waste into our waterways. Rags Martell has been for a look.
We're in Battersea and going underground. But first,
oh my God,
we have to go up. Thames Tideway have invited us to look at London's new super sewer.
So this is the only way to actually get into the tunnel?
At the moment, yes.
Easy coming down, looking good now.
Slowly,
Easy coming.
We are taken down.
All the way.
The winch drops us 55 metres.
About 10 metres to go now.
It takes 5 minutes. But at last, we touch down. And once we're here, the best way to see the new super sewer is to ride it by bicycle.
Wow.
6 years in the making, the tunnel is now 15 miles long, stretching from Ealing in the west all the way to Abbey Mills near Stratford in the east.
How much is this super sewer needed in London?
This super sewer is really needed for us in London because the current sewage system is from the 19th century, which was meant to capture water for approximately 4 million people. At this very moment, I think there is about 8 million people living in London.
When the old Victorian sewers, designed by Sir Joseph Bazalgette, get overloaded, they can't cope and human waste overspills into the Thames. But with the new super sewer, excess waste will instead go to the overspill and then drop down to be then washed away.
So with this super sewer, we're trying to capture all that overflow water and create a better clean environment for the River Thames.
So not only will this manage London sewer better, but it will also make a cleaner Thames.
Exactly. We're looking into in the future have a cleaner environment for the river and have a proper ecosystem in it.
And this super sewer is very wide, more than 7 metres in width, enough to fit 3 London buses facing you side by side. We often see those pictures of the fatbergs, as they're called, blocking up sewers. How is this going to be different?
Well, we've got an inclination in the tunnel of 1 to 789, which is about 0.13% of inclination towards the way to the east. So that is going to help us getting rid of all those chunks of material.
Our cycle over, we left the workers to it. The super sewer is due to open its waters in 2025. Rags Martel, ITV News, Battersea.
Still to come on the programme. Lift off at last. The London scientists' mission to get to Jupiter is a go, and
Spring into action. Stretch.
80s fitness icon Diana Moran has a mission of her own, getting our elderly moving. Before that, to a story of extraordinary bravery. 5-year-old Zainab Qasim had finished school for the day and just arrived outside her home in East London when she saw her mum fall unconscious. When she couldn't wake her up, she found her mum's phone and dialed 999.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah? All right. Can you? Is your mum breathing?
No.
Not breathing at all?
No. So my mum is picking up from school.
Yeah.
And then we done that call, and then she gets sick.
And then she just fainted?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Ambulance crews arrived and thankfully mum was fine, and now Zainab has been reunited with that 999 call handler who is Natasha. Zainab is here with me too, and Dad Mohammed. Welcome to you all. I've got to come to the star of the show first. Zainab, when you made that 999 call, how did you know what to say?
So I felt like I should be brave.
You felt like you should be brave, and you were brave. And what did you have to say to the person on the other end of the phone? What kind of things did you tell them?
So my mum wasn't well because she couldn't wake up, so I had to come back from school.
Yeah. Were you a bit scared? You weren't scared. Must have been frightening seeing Mummy, though, unconscious. A little bit scary, wasn't it? Yeah? Shall we talk to the person who was on the other end of the phone that day, Natasha? How brilliantly did she do?
Absolutely amazing. Zainab, it's honestly one of the best callers I've had.
Oh, now that is high plaudits indeed. I mean, how rare is this to happen for a child to have to make this phone call?
It's not something that we get kind of every day. I've been a call handler for just under 3 years, and I've probably had a few handfuls, and that's it. So, especially for a child Zainab's age, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, she knew what to say. She gave her address and also local landmarks. Mohammed, is that something you'd gone through with Zainab before, how to handle a situation like that?
Yeah, actually, Zainab, she finishes school and she comes, mom is to pick up her from school and she's not feeling well. So I was at work and she did call me.
Yeah.
She said, she called me at home at Baba.
Okay.
She said, Baba, it's a bad news. I thought maybe something happened in school or class or something. That's why she's saying. So I said, what happened? She said, oh, Mama not feeling well. Please come back home quickly. Okay. So I said, come, I'm on the way. I'm coming. So then I was on the way, and then paramedics, they did call me from my wife's mobile. So I said, how you guys are there? They said, your daughter did call us. I said, oh, that's amazing. So I'm so proud of her, yeah.
Oh, you must be so proud.
Yeah.
Let's listen to a little bit more from the phone call, because I really love this little bit, just because it's quite fun. Let's have a listen.
And how old is she?
I don't know.
You don't know, that's fine, okay. And is she awake? She's a big girl.
Yeah, she's an adult.
Ah, wow, okay. And is she awake?
No.
No.
She's a big girl. Why did you say big girl? Do you not know how old Mummy is?
No.
No? Have you found out since then how old Mummy is? I'm going to take that as a no. Maybe that's the next bit of information you need to learn, because you did brilliantly learning your address, remembering the number. Natasha, there's a serious point here, isn't there? Actually, like Mohammed, talk to your children about what to do in a situation like this.
Yeah, I do some school visits with our public education team, and one of the main things that I emphasise is to go home and learn your address if you don't know it, because obviously we hope that no one's going to end up in that situation, but
You
yeah.
did brilliantly, all of you. Thank you so much. Zainab, thank you especially to you.
Thank you.
The European Space Agency has at last launched a mission to Jupiter. Bad weather delayed it yesterday. The Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, nicknamed JUICE, is heading to the solar system's biggest planet. Here's Daniel Henry.
Burning through a cloudy sky, hoping to shed new light on the prospect of new life beyond our planet. The rocket took off on a South American coast.
La propulsion est nominale.
But part of the research that got it to this point comes from our capital. Michelle Doherty is head of the physics department at Imperial College. Her team believe there's water on the moons close to Jupiter, and they're particularly interested in what's happening on one of them called Ganymede.
If you're looking for ingredients for life or for potential habitability to form, you need 4 different things. First ingredient is liquid water. The second one is a heat source, which we're almost sure we have at Ganymede because there's this internal dynamo field. Organic material. And then those first 3 ingredients to be stable enough over a long enough period of time that something can actually happen.
The Juicy Icy Moon Explorer, yes, that really is what it's called, was supposed to take off yesterday, but bad weather got in the way. It cost £1.4 billion to build. Those behind it are convinced that it will prove to be worth every penny.
We do it because it promotes technology innovation. If you're trying to answer the next big questions in space, and often you find the technology that you invent has other uses here on Earth.
There are 600 million miles between Earth and Jupiter, and this rocket is expected to take 8 years before it arrives. But this mission could bring us closer than ever before. Daniel Henry, ITV News.
Now, before Joe Wicks, celebrity fitness DVDs and even Mr. Motivator, there was Diana Moran. The 80s fitness idol is now helping her fellow pensioners keep fit and flexible, and she's kept a hint of the old look that made her famous as, of course, the Green Goddess. Kafo Pater went to a care home in Westminster to get involved.
A striking green leotard with matching leg warmers. That's right, it's the Green Goddess. With a career dating all the way back to the 80s, Diana Moran once dominated morning television by helping her audience, big or small, to shape up, get up and stretch.
Bring up the knees. I want you to hug one of your knees and bring it up towards you. Oh, that's lovely. Well,
Now aged 84 and she's still kicking it.
do you know, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be active as the years go by.
Today she's leading a session with residents at Norton House, working through a series of movements and stretches, all aimed at improving stability and helping flexibility.
That is really good, really good. I wish I could do everything they said to do.
Well, actually, I feel quite giddy.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, the benefits of groups like this couldn't be more obvious. Not only is it a chance to socialise, get moving, but it's also what we want.
New research by Anchor found 75% of Londoners wish they were more physically active, and 50% of us prefer to be active in a group.
And on that note, I'm going to go join in.
What you don't do is have to do 30 seconds.
That's it. Back and stretch.
And after a few minutes of stretching, it was time to sit down with Diana to find some quick and easy ways to stay fit from home.
I'm sitting down just to encourage people to still be able to move, to move the top half of their body, to shrug off the cares of the world on their shoulders, do the stretches as you saw me do earlier, even, you know, tapping your feet, using your legs here like this, using your arms, so strengthening as much of your body as you can do, even with limited ability.
But it's not just the elderly this applies to.
No, lovely, you're a lucky young man. The thing is also that as we get older, you don't know anything about this yet, but really from about the age of 50, 60, our bones start changing. And if our bones have become a little weaker, as they often have done, then falling is going to create a lot of difference in our lives. Staying physically active gives us a quality to life as we get older.
So there you have it. Do as the goddess says, keep fit and carry on stretching. Kath O'Patter, ITV News.
OK, on to the weekend weather now. Here's Philippa Drew with the forecast.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
Hello there. Well, it has been a rather disappointing day for many of us weather-wise. A good deal of cloud, outbreaks of rain and quite windy with it too as a result. Feeling on the chilly side, but through the next few days, it's all changed, becoming increasingly dry as we head through the weekend. The winds will ease down for a time as well. And big change will be in the temperatures. It looks as though they'll be climbing up the scale, perhaps close to 20 Celsius at some point next week. And we can see just why. High pressure will start to build in as we head through the weekend. And by early next week, it will be established up towards Scandinavia there, exerting its influence across the UK and giving us a very quiet and increasingly warm spell of weather. But that, of course, is not the case out there at the moment. Still cloudy, wet and fairly breezy. The rain quite persistent, locally heavy for a time, maybe even the odd rumble of thunder through this evening. But as the night wears on, it will slowly start to nudge eastwards, drier conditions creeping into western parts, but still a good deal of cloud. And of course, underneath the cloudy skies, temperatures will hold up pretty well for the time of year, probably hovering between around 5 and 7 degrees Celsius for most of us. Tomorrow morning then, a cloudy start, outbreaks of rain first thing, but things will soon improve. The rain will clear, the cloud will thin and break, and we should see some lovely sunshine coming through. Of course, as that sunshine comes through and the temperatures start to rise, we'll also see a few showers developing, and some of those could be on the heavy, perhaps thundery side. Thankfully though, they will be relatively few and far between, and with more in the way of sunshine than we've had today and lighter winds, it will feel fairly pleasant in that sunshine. Highs tomorrow 14, perhaps 15 degrees. Enjoy.
Valent sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
And that is all we have time for. Lucrezia is here next, though, with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, thank you for watching and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.